someone I don't wanna know, unless they happen to be at this show. I don't know who fucked up or who stole all your shit, but if they're next to you right now, just run up and hit them. Fuck that crazy bitch, man, I wish she had died. When my best friend prevented her from suicide. I don't know what's fucked up or what's wrong that I did. You're a grown-up adult getting mad at a kid, so let's bounce down the hatchet and bring it. Wow, if you got some beef with me, fight me right now.
Right there. All right, we're recording. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Garret Schuelke podcast. I am your host, your boy, Garret Schuelke. And today's guest is, there's no real way to hype it up. It's a big one because he's one of my favorite podcasters. He is a comedian from the Big Apple, New York City, where he is most known for being the co-host of the shows Pod Damn America and Why You Mad. He's also released 2 comedy albums, performed at numerous comedy festivals across the country, and most recently, he toured with legendary 90s rock band Eve 6, which is what we're going to be talking about, among other things. Folks, he is, after all these years, Homeland Security's #1 comic to watch, Jake Flores.
Thank you. That was a better introduction than I've ever been able to write for myself. That was excellent.
Yeah, that's the intro. Homeland Security still watching you, you know?
I don't think so. I mean, you never know with that sort of thing. But what I took away from that experience those years ago, when I was interrogated by them, was that, my name went to file, and I did get the feeling that the organization was particularly organized in a way where this is going to come back and bite me, especially given how many other people have just reached out to me over the years and said, holy shit, the same thing happened to me. I sort of came to realize I don't think this is something where they're maybe necessarily doing COINTELPRO stuff to the Brooklyn podcast scene. I like to imagine that we're that important over here. I think that the deep state, or where the fuck, the intelligence organizations in the government right now are just kind of flailing wildly and bad at whatever the fuck they're supposed to be doing, and ideologically wrong in so many ways. So actually, oddly, I'd be surprised if they ever followed up with me.
Yeah, they're more concentrated right now on mafia guys attacking their FBI agents, not popular leftist podcasters.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like they aren't, though, right? Because that happened because they kind of weren't going after a lot of those guys, or at least in any way that made any sense. The J6 stuff, famously was organized in public on Facebook, and yet there wasn't really a whole lot of police or federal government type stuff there to preempt it from happening. So I don't know if it's just, if now they're oh shit, we should go after these right-wing radical types, or what the hell's going on back there. I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive here, but to me, it's been a few years, and I'm I'm not. I've been fly a bunch of times and stuff, and do stuff that if my name was on a particular watch list would have probably tripped.
Yeah, I have thought about that, when you're touring, and I don't see anything in the U.S., but I don't know, maybe it could come back to haunt you if you go outside the country. You go perform in Canada, and they're like, hey, we got this report from Homeland Security here. Talk about a joke you made that one time.
Yeah, I haven't really traveled internationally in the last couple of years, so that could be the thing that trips it. I was gonna go to Mexico, and then COVID happened, so I'll never know what would have happened there. But yeah, I don't know, man.
All right. Well, that was just the intro. I know you took that off your profile, but I thought to add it in there.
Oh no, I wrote it myself. I think it's clever.
Okay. Well, Jake, thanks for taking time to come on, man. How's it going?
It's going all right, man. I'm back in New York. I got back from that tour with E6. I know we started talking like during that tour, kind of about recording something, and I think I called an audible and was like, you know what, it's hard to. I've done podcasts in the middle of tours before, and it can be done, but it's sometimes a necessary amount of stress. The the upshot is that sometimes you capture a little bit of the essence of like what it's like to be in a tour when you do something like that. But I appreciate you letting me sort of get my marbles back together, because I got home and then the shit hit the fan in New York in so many ways in my life living here. Like I had this thing happen where my air conditioner crashed, and I live in like a punk house where it's like not. I keep trying to explain this to people in my life. It's like, no. It's not like when your air conditioner crashed. This fucked shit up around here, like really bad, because this is not like a place humans are supposed to be living to begin with. So the AC was really holding a lot of shit together. And and then, from that forward, it just knocked over a bunch of dominoes. So I've been like picking up random bartending shifts to scrape together cash to buy this or that part and all this stuff. And like, really just kind of living in the weeds, but I've embraced it. I'm having a pretty manic summer, where I don't know, the wheels of destiny have just decided to throw a bunch of shit at me. And at first I was pissed off about it, and then I watched that show The Bear, and I got really into service industry mindset and became one of those guys. And now I'm like I'm just into fighting against the universe. So this is a nice break, actually, sitting down and having a conversation.
Yeah, a little behind the scenes for all the GSP fans, but yeah, I think Jake is probably the most that I've emailed back and forth with for a guest. We've had some pretty good negotiations on there on how to make this interview possible. And yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's well worth it,
No, I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you working with me, because I had to go to town. My sister got married and stuff. I've just been really busy.
Really?
I mean, most people, summertime is like a break for them, and I think I'm off by some kind of cosmic clock or something, because like I think this summer has been a gauntlet for me. So I'm like waiting until the fall, and that's when I'm going to go to the beach or whatever. I don't know. It's like there's a oasis on the horizon for me, life wise.
Oh, well, we'll get into that. And before
caught me in the middle of all that shit, so I appreciate you letting me go. Hey, let's bump this back a couple weeks. Helped out a lot.
Oh, okay. Okay, before we begin, too, a very cool room there. I know I say that because I too once lived in a basement apartment. It had its ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. I'm sorry. What?
Oh, I was going to correct you. It says it's more of an attic, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, wait, you're in an attic?
Technically, I'm above a factory.
Oh, nice.
At the top of a factory. It's really weird.
So, are the hosts of a Street Fight Radio, Brett and Brian, were they accurate in saying that you live like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle?
Yeah, it looks exactly like that.
Okay. Again, I'm glad we got that out of the way then. All right, Jake, let's get right down to the questions, man.
Sure.
Eve 6, it's been about 3 months since you toured with them. Yeah, how did this unlikely union between you, Jake Flores, podcaster and comedian, and 90s rock sensations Eve 6 happen?
That's something that I like only learned really on the tour itself while hanging out with Max. Eventually I kind of worked up the nerve to ask him, like, hey, how the fuck did you find me to begin with? Because the short answer is that he's a Twitter guy and he listens to podcasts, right? And he's into like left shit. So I knew he listened to Chapo and some of the other ones. And but I didn't know the rest of the story. And so I asked him about it. And I guess the way he tells it, I mean, Max is like, the guy from Eve Six. His name's Max. Everyone else knows him as the guy from Eve Six.
Yeah, the Eve Six guy,
Right.
Twitter.
Eve Six guy. I mean, he's got a really interesting life. He wrote this song when he was like 16 or something. It blows up. It becomes, this huge deal in an era when you can have a hit and then have it make your band. And so he's been a rock star his entire life. Like, hasn't really had a job, other than that. And he's certainly aware of how blessed he is to have had this. And, he's still got the band and is still touring on it. A lot of people, when I told people about this tour with Eve Six, and I kind of thought this too, because I'm a stupid Brooklyn hipster or whatever, is that like, I kind of thought, oh, are they like resurrecting the band? Like, was it like a band that fizzled out and then they stopped and then they're using this Twitter stuff to like give it some gas or whatever and like bring it back? But the fact of the matter is that E6 has been touring consistently since the 90s. Like, it's just something you don't think about if you're not in that particular fandom. But like most bands that you would think of in that area of the ether, like they just tour. They have fans, and then they have a touring schedule they do every year to service those fans. So this was so I guess what I'm getting at though is that like this guy was around and he had a pretty established career and stuff, and I think that at some point he just got like really comfortable with the band, and then had enough free time to develop other curiosities and stuff like that beyond like the stuff that he was even writing about in those early albums and stuff. So like, his own fans are often thrown off, like, why is this guy talking about like socialism and stuff on Twitter? Like, well, what does he think he's going to be sitting here talking about putting his heart in a blender like he was writing about for like 16 when he was 16 years old? It's like in his 40s now, it's like 3 decades. So
why isn't he talking about like 90s alt rock or sharing old videos with captions like, man, those were the days?
Yeah. I mean, that's what you have to do, to serve the fans if you're in a band like that, but you're not actually just reduced to that much, mental hard drive space or whatever. So this guy clearly, I mean, he's really interesting. He has a side project that's really cool. It's really funny. It's called Chevy Mustang, which is like clever because Chevy doesn't make Mustang. It's just this thing where he pretends to be a German techno guy, and then like just makes these really bizarre like techno songs as like a weird Andy Kaufman, Weird Al kind of bit.
Like an outsider music kind of thing.
Yeah, but like it's on purpose as a joke. Like if you want to book Chevy Mustang, you have to call him and ask for Chevy Mustang, and then he like puts the phone away and then comes back as this is him. Like it's like a whole thing. It's funny. Right?
Oh, nice. Got a character about it.
So this guy's got other stuff going on in his life than what you think about when you think, oh, the Eve Six guy, right? And I think one of those things is that he probably went down a podcast wormhole at one point, and he told me he started listening to this show called The Perfume Nationalist, which I've never even listened to, but I'm familiar with. And I think what the story there is it was one of the very early like leftish radical podcast things that existed, but then like it became very clear over time that the guy who started it was actually a Nazi, or like he moved in that direction.
Really?
Yeah. And so
I've never heard of it until now.
He's like actually kind of ideologically fascist. But then there were people, if you get into podcasts, they're just a soap opera. Like there were people that were on that show that then left and started their own, and they didn't like that guy anymore, so they did this other thing, and yada yada yada. And everybody knows fucking Chapo is like the big one, and all those other stupid ones that are like in the orbit around it. But I mean, like I was guesting on random shit, and I was on the show called Girls Chat at one point. That like
I listened to that one. Yeah,
you're a weirdo if you heard that. Like that's cool. But also, I mean, nobody listened to that show, so like if you heard it, that's fucking cool. I think he heard me on there, and then he went, "Oh shit, that's like."
Yeah, I think you rapped on that.
I rapped.
Our things.
A lot of fun, and it was so funny because I was like, no one's gonna hear this, and then it turns out I think a lot of people like happened to catch it, and I think it might be the reason that I opened for E6 because eventually that guy I remember when he started following me on Twitter too. This is before I knew anything about his like actual self, and I was like, "What the fuck? The Eve 6 account is going on here?" And then eventually, though, me and him he started tweeting like at me, and I'd tweet back at him, and then it turned into a Mufos thing, and then eventually it turned into the type of thing where like we DM'd enough and had conversations, and then eventually I was thinking about something. I could call him on the phone and be like, "Man, what do you think about this?" And then we kind of just became friends the way you do through the internet. And and then eventually he goes like, "Do you want to open for the band on tour?" And I was like, "Of course I do. It's a great gig for me and stuff." But I mean, he really he really pulled his weight and like in booking me because usually if you do something that big, at the very least, they ask you to send a tape or something. Like, he booked me like kind of blind. I mean, I have like some material on the internet, and maybe he listened to my albums or something. But his like, he kind of told a joke about it on stage. His like management and stuff I was not their first choice. Like he really kind of pulled some some rank there. But like also though, it's pretty cool that he did that, I think. And I think we put on a pretty good show. But yeah, I mean, he just kind of manifested all this. And he's smart. I mean, he arrived here through being really interested in the anti-capitalist stuff. I didn't really know anything about the other guys in the band before the tour, but then I met like John Siebels, we call him Sweet Pea, and I'd stay up all night talking to him about like, you know, like like China and stuff, and like he's like in the PSL, and we'd be talking about Gaza and Palestine and shit like that. And I'd be like, holy fuck, all right, these guys are serious. This isn't just some kind of Twitter trend these people got into. So they're serious leftists, and I think that's kind of the glue that hold the whole thing together.
God, can you imagine if they were that out about it back in the 90s? How things might have been different instead of just being the inside out people.
Well, I doubt they were that radical back in the 90s, but yeah, no, I mean, I don't know though, Sweet Pea has a sticker on his guitar that says Free Palestine, and it's like he's on stage, it's there. If you're smart, you see it. If you're dumb, I don't think you know what it means. Like, I think you actually kind of could be like a famous band like that and be screaming sort of from the rafters like Free Palestine, and people wouldn't even know what the fuck you were talking about. Like, I say this because I was just like arguing with somebody in a bar the other night about Rage Against the Machine, and the guy, but he was like a dumb liberal, and he was like arguing with me about politics, and he was like, communism's bad. But then like 10 minutes later, he was talking about how much he loves Rage Against the Machine, and I was like, but do you not listen to the lyrics or understand what they mean? And the answer is no, of course you didn't. So I don't know. I mean, Rage Against the Machine is interesting because you can have totally radical aesthetics going on and stuff, and as long as you act like a band in capitalism, then no one gives a shit, either in the industry or in the audience. And kind of E6 is kind of an interesting, like you might even call it like an inside out version of that.
I see what you did there.
Thank you. In that their aesthetic is just their aesthetic. It's just a band. It just sounds like music about living life or whatever.
Yeah, 90s rock band.
But the way that they are operating by like booking, not to fucking put a feather in my own cap here, but myself and a openly extremely queer ska band like We Are the Union, their actions are radical, and that's the stuff that actually might get you blowback, from the industry.
All right. Before we get all into that adventure, let's just get this off the table. What's your favorite E6 song aside from Inside
Out? It's funny is I have a few now from touring with the band and hearing them every night and stuff, and I'm not even really that sick of them. I'm a little sick of them because I heard them 30 times in a row, but I don't know. I mean, you have a good experience like this, it kind of causes if I met Eve Six and they were like assholes, that it would cause their music to sound worse to me. You know what I mean? But because they're extremely cool, I think it caused my brain to be primed for like really trying to connect with this music a little bit more. And so now I have, yeah, I mean, I unfortunately think that's how a lot of things work. So I guess I say that so because I don't want to sound like I'm bullshitting you if I go, oh, I've always loved this band and everything. You know, it's like, no, I'd be very lying, you know, if I were just saying that to just rewrite everything because they gave me such a good opportunity. But like, anyway, having arrived at this relationship with the music in that manner, I told Max this and I kind of bummed him out, but I think but we played New York City, and we played New York City. One of my favorite musicians, guy in a punk band called Titus Andronicus. Guy's name's Patrick Stickles. He had also become friends with Max on Twitter, and he did this thing where he asked to come sing one of their songs, and so he covered it in a Patrick Stickles way. And when he covered it, I listened to it, and I really because I was such a fan of the way he plays music, it made me understand the song in a certain way. And that song is Promise, which is like one of their other kind of big hits. But like, and their video went kind of viral. It's like on, if you look it up on YouTube and stuff, you can find it. There's like a short clip. I think they might even taken my camera footage of when, because I filmed the part singing it. But it really, like, the way Stickles sang it, because he's like a punk guy that has like a lot of blues going on in the background of what he does. He does a lot of like weird, like Springsteen-y kind of backbeat shit.
Oh, punk blues, heartland rock kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I the blues in the background of punk to me like really is essential. Like when you listen to like I don't know, like the Slits or something like that, or like fucking there's a really great band called Ben Out of Shape from here in New York that has a lot of this like kind of weird thing where it's like it almost just sounds like old-timey rock and roll for a little bit, but then it's got the spirit of punk in the front of it.
More like a garage rock kind of thing.
Yeah, so he really turned Promise into that, and now when I listen to it, I hear everything just brightened because it showed me what's going on in that song already. But I think Max's lyrics in it are really brilliant, and I think he gets a lot of shit for like, you know, like he always makes fun of himself, which is why I think he's so funny and so smart, and because he's like humble about what's happening in his, you know, absurd existence as a human on the planet Earth. But like, you know, he makes fun of the nature of his own lyrics in those old songs because like they're absurd and don't make any sense. And he says, "Oh, I read them a long time ago. I don't know what the hell I even meant when I was saying or am I origami or whatever." But like, I don't know. I was just listening to like Beck the other day, and I was like, you can make the same argument about like Devil's Haircut. Like, what the fuck is that guy talking about? You're allowed to do that with music, right? Is like write these like, you know, these just like lines that just evoke, you know, bizarre, absurd images that don't really have to mean anything, or can be just be a Rorschach test, or maybe they do. You find out later, oh, this actually meant something. You know, it's like it's cool. It does stuff to your brain. So think about the way he wrote those lyrics back then, and that song Promise, and it's just got these lines like, you know, white as a newborn, or red as a newborn, white as a corpse. It's like how it leads into one of the fucking choruses and stuff. And they're intense, you know, they're cool. I like it. That one really pops to me. I also just really like their new stuff. I don't know if you've heard the new one, Mr. Darkside, but I'm the cover of the album, so I like that one a lot.
Is that the one that he currently has as his profile picture on Twitter right now?
Yeah. I think, but I do think it's a good song. I think he's kind of got this interesting like power poppy kind of thing going on right now.
Oh.
Honestly, you know what though? Like another thing that he's done that I really like, that I think is a fucking banger, is this one-off thing he did with a guy from Bass Drum of Death. And it happened when he was first getting really into Twitter and just sort of like wasting a bunch of time on it like you do. So I guess what happened is that he was starting a lot of shit with other artists from the 90s and stuff like that, getting into arguments with people and stuff, and like talk, you know, spilling all this gossip he wasn't supposed to say out loud and stuff. which I like, and I think that's also why me and him did a lot. It's because I was doing a lot of the same stuff.
Just getting into a beef with like the main singer of Spin Doctors, or Deep Blue something.
Yeah, got into a kind of a thing with the guy from Basement of Death, who I like, good band, and then I think what happened is in the middle of arguing, Max realized he was kind of wrong about what he was saying, and he was actually the asshole. And he also, Max is sober, and he has all these great stories. He's the kind of guy who's sober and has great stories about when he was drunk. And, that's why he's sober, is because it's like too much, one of those guys. So, so he's wise though, in the way that the person who understands their own addiction and stuff is wise. And like, I think that he started to realize when he was arguing with the bass drum of death guy, that the bass drum of death guy is maybe an alcoholic or a drunk or whatever the fuck. I'm not, gonna put that word on it myself. I don't fucking know. Just an outside of the story. But like, he saw some patterns and realized the guy was like drunk at a bar and on his phone and fucking tweeting with the guy. And so he went to rectify the situation, I guess. And he was like, he apologized, and then somehow them talking about their fight turned into them making a song, like Postal Service style, sending tracks back and forth.
Oh, really? Postal Service?
That's how they did that, right? The Postal Service. That's why it was called that. Am I getting that
right? Man. Yeah, Ben Gibbard, I think. Death Cab for Cutie.
Yeah,
Postal Service.
The other person he made that project with, they like sent the tapes back and forth, and that's how they made it or something.
Really?
I could be wrong about that. I think that's why it's called the Postal Service. But it was a collaboration through the mail. So anyway, Max and the bass drum of death guy made a song called "You Were Right," and at the time, I was talking to Max, and we were just talking about bands from the '90s, and I was going through, just certain like phases and listening to music. And I was talking about the band Placebo, and I was like, "Man, you ever listen to Placebo? Like, what do you think of them?" Because I loved to ask him, "What do you know about this band?" Like he'll always have a story because he toured with them or whatever. So I was talking about Placebo, and I think he maybe just had Placebo in the brain when he made this song with the bass drum of death guy. But it is a certified banger. Like, it's so good. He made this weird genre, like indefinable, like kind of spooky, gothy, like pulsing song, and I play it all the fucking time. It's in my rotation. Like, it's good. That one kicks ass. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of them.
All right. My favorite song is Here's to the Night.
What's the other big one? Easy.
No, even back in the day when, in the 90s when I was a kid, I enjoyed that song a lot more than Inside Out.
Okay, fair enough. That is,
in a sea of Inside Out enjoyers, I am a Here's the Night appreciator.
Yeah. No, okay, sorry. That is not easy. I appreciate what you're saying there.
Yeah. All right. Let's get down to the serious questions then. Okay, so you went on tour with E6 as a comedian.
Yes.
You did your act there. And if I recall right from my research, this isn't the first time you've done wait, what? Wait, what's this? This meeting will end in 10 minutes. Upgrade now to remove the 40-minute. Wait, what?
Wow, we have a time limit.
Wait, what the fuck? Are you kidding me?
That happens unless you purchase like the $15 a month Zoom thing. But I could probably record the rest of it on my end. I have Zoom.
Oh God, can you please do that, dude?
Yeah, no problem. Let me open up my recording thing here. I might have to. Oh, I think there's a way to make me like the host.
Okay.
It'll probably stop.
Okay. Hold on a sec.
Yeah, let's figure that out then.
Jake, I am so fucking sorry, dude.
It's all good, man. This ain't my first rodeo. I do this all the time.
You never hear about this on Pod Damn America. You know that?
That's a lie, dude. We're such a mess. Our fucking equipment's always exploding and shit, and like Anders is always knocking shit over on it.
No, it's cool shit like that. Not, lame stuff on here where it's like, upgrade now, or else we'll cut off your shit on this important interview you're doing.
This exact thing happened to us when we first started doing Zoom over the pandemic. Also, this is not important, but I appreciate that. Okay, so how do you make somebody the host? You go.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Let's see. It might be under participants or. Oh, you know what? If you go to. No.
Honestly, now that I think about it, the fans that I do have probably do expect this to happen during this podcast.
If you go to participants, click that button, a little box pops up.
Okay.
And then if you go to, I think, the dots next to my name, does it say make host?
Let me do that again.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. Make host. Slap.
Okay, you are the host now.
Okay. Now I'm hosting the show.
Now you are in control.
Huh. It won't. Is the timer still going?
Yeah, it's still going.
How do I make the timer go away?
Quality podcasting content here on hashtag powerful GSP.
Well, here, you know what? I'll just start a new room and I'll just email you the link.
Oh, you will?
Yeah. Let's
Okay, folks, we'll be right back. Thank you, Zoombot.
All right, we're back.
All right, we're back. And we got the train here because, Anyway, we're back with Jake. Jake, thank you for singing this episode.
Oh, no, not a problem.
I don't know. You're recording on your end now. Is this technically a swap cast?
Sure. Why the hell not?
Okay, great. GSP PDA swap cast. There you go. All right. Back to your regular schedule program. Anyway, Jake, according to my research, from what I remember, this isn't the first time you did a musician-comedian tour, right? I believe that you did one in the past with Mishka Shubaly.
Yeah, me and Mishka have been out a few times. It's kind of a niche I've worked my way into, is opening for musicians. Mishka is, if you don't know him, he is a brilliant singer-songwriter who kind of plays alone, just a guy and a guitar, and he kind of is adjacent to the comedy world because he was like this. He played in bands in New York City in like the 2001 era, like before all the New York City rock blew up back then, and wrote these really clever, like heartbreaking songs that speak to dumb guys who have a lot of heartbreak and drink alcohol and things like that. And so I immediately fell in love with his music when I was a young man. And he also, I guess, attracted the ear of Doug Stanhope, who is...
Yep, that's how I first heard of him.
Yeah.
Don't cut your hair on Doug Stanhope podcast.
Right, yeah. Before Stanhope had a podcast or anything, though, he loved Mishka, and he took him on tour. Mishka was opening for him, so it was the other way around. And I was a Stanhope fan, so I went to go see Stanhope, and then saw this guy opening, and thought his music was really great, and the whole show was cool. And so I think I followed him on like MySpace or something at the time, and then it's odd because like he was That was back before he quit drinking, and now it's insane to think about because he's like so defined. He's one of those guys who's like defined by his sobriety now. Like writes books about it and shit, and has this really intense, wise perspective. But he was still a drunk when he was opening for Stanhope, and I think that's when he like. I mean, that makes sense. Hanging out with somebody like Doug Stanhope, you might hit the wall, you know, if you were gonna hit it ever. Stanhope, if anyone doesn't know, is a great comedian, but he's
Stanhope encourages that behavior.
Yeah, he's a really interesting intellectual comedian who is also just like a hedonist and like a cosmonaut. So there's lots of drugs and alcohol and stuff going around. And Stanhope's somebody I was really into at one point, and then he took a libertarian turn, and I kind of wasn't. And then he's to his credit, I think he figured out that was bullshit. Not to get bogged down in politics, but yeah. So Mishka, I was a fan of his, and then eventually I was living in New York at the same time as him and started coming to shows and seeing him. And then slowly we just started working together. And so then he asked me to come on tour with him. And I think I worked out and developed a lot of the weird like skills and stuff for opening for musicians doing that. And we became pretty good friends. And it helped a lot with then like the Eve 6 thing. And I just got back in town and opened for Off With Their Heads, you know, and was able to kind of use a lot of the tricks and stuff that I've learned working with those two other people. And yeah, it's a good niche I've got. I don't know. I like it. It's cool. Yeah. If you're in a band, you should book me to open for you. I'm the only comedian that knows how to do it. Everyone else fucks it up.
Yep. Everyone check them out on Twitter @FeralJokes. Yeah. Okay. So what was the difference between, you know, the E6 tour and the Mishka Shubaly tour, aside from, you know, solo musician and 90s rock band?
The size of the audience. It's funny, man. Mishka is like a good friend of mine now. Like we're all, I mean, and same thing with like Max. Like it's funny, you know, you're a fan of someone, and if you're an artist and they're an artist, and then you want to use the opener or whatever, eventually you just become mutual fans of each other's or whatever. So like now Mishka is like, he's like one of my closest friends, and I pick up the phone and I call him if I have a problem, you know, and I need to like hear somebody's perspective on shit. So like so I'm just busted his balls is what I'm saying. But like he's really interesting though in that he's done some pretty huge stuff like as a writer. Like Mark Lanigan, the singer from Screaming Trees, he's like if you're into music, especially if you're into like grunge and stuff, this is a huge figure, right? Just died. Right before he died, Mishka like helped him write his book about his life. A lot of people don't pay attention to who the co-author is on a book like that, but that's like, you know, pretty big. Mishka's also like written a bunch of shit on Amazon. I think he wrote the first Kindle singles that really took off on Amazon. So
yeah, I think it's the one that popularized those.
The one that what?
I think he's the one that popularized Kindle singles.
Yeah. And so like it's really funny, you know, he knows I'm a fucking pinko commie, so I always bust his chops over this, but like when Mishka wrote his own book, the foreword to it is written by Jeff Bezos because he like is a
wait, what?
Yeah, really? The foreword to Mishka's like memoir is written by Jeff Bezos because Bezos read all those stories because they were the first things that took off on Amazon Kindle, and then he became a fan probably for reasons. Just I'm sure Bezos is one of those sober psychos, you know. Who knows why? But like, so Mishka's like a huge deal. Like he's like writing on these huge levels, you know, but a lot of times, like Max with the, you know, with his band and then his side projects, like the thing I was describing earlier, you know, Mishka's real art, the thing he really wants, he makes a lot of money writing and stuff like that, which he is brilliant at, but the thing he really loves is just jumping in the van and playing shows, but, you know, neither him or me are, like, particularly famous, so, and especially the way a tour works, you know, you might play a big fucking 300-person room on a Friday night or a Saturday night, but you still need to play a show that coming Monday. And so a lot of the shows we fucking play in front of, you know, 12 people or whatever. And it's but that's something you get doing stand up too. I mean, stand up is a stupid art form that half the time nobody watches. So like Part of it is just learning to play those shows and like learning how to deal with that situation when it happens, and also how to play to the big room and stuff. And also like the crowds are just different. Like a lot of Mishka's fans are Stanhope type weirdos. And
Yeah, I've seen Stanhope about 3 times. He is one of my favorite comedians. I have my criticisms, but yeah, I agree with you on the fan portion.
some of those fans are like insufferable. Some of them are really fun. I mean, it's just he's a countercultural like intellectual, so he's gonna attract all sorts of weirdos, um, and you have to know how to play towards them, I guess. But some of them are fucking great, and some of them are a nightmare, and that's true of a lot of things. But and honestly, Eve 6, like, they attracted just like normal fans, like people, and I don't mean that as a compliment. I mean like normie people who were just like,
You still listen to the radio.
Yeah, they listen to the radio, like instead of like Spotify or whatever, which is like just bananas to me. So I had to figure out a way to reach those people too. Doing stand-up is like all about connecting. Like you're bad at stand-up if you do the same thing and then you get mad that you get different results, because it's like every group of people is different or whatever. So these are just the minute differences that I noticed while trying to figure out how to not bomb these shows.
All right, and throughout the tour, you podcasted, and you talked about a lot of the places you performed at. Most notable being Comet Ping Pong in Washington, D.C. I assume neither of you found the basement there.
No, I love Comet Ping Pong Pizza, man.
Is the food good there?
It's great, and like. It looked really good on the tour poster and everything. It was funny. Since the tour was themed after kind of an internet phenomenon of, me and him being friends and stuff. It made sense to book Comet Ping Pong, but like, how do I explain this? Right. So like, most of the venues we played with Eve 6 were bigger than Comet Ping Pong. Comet Ping Pong is a small punk venue. So when we started talking to them, I think they were like, fuck it, we'll do 2 nights. That way you can sell the same amount of tickets and just stay here over 2 nights, right? And it worked. Sold both of them out immediately. It was cool. And I think that they let us get away with joking about the Pizzagate stuff more than they would another band, because they knew that was like part of the gimmick. And that's cool of them. But as soon as I got there, I was starting to feel out the room and starting to figure out what I was going to joke about on stage and stuff. And I did a few adrenochrome jokes and stuff. And like, we were all doing it at each other. I mean, it's funny to us because we're us and we don't work at Comet Ping Pong Pizza, because is what I'm getting at. But I started to
we don't have people busting in with guns pointing them at you.
Yeah. And also, I mean, even outside of like that extreme of a context, something you got to know as a traveling comic is like, if the town has a funny name and you're in town for the first time ever, don't do a joke about the town's funny name, because everyone there has already heard it and they're sick of it. Something's new to you doesn't mean it's new to them. It's probably like the exact opposite. Or like, I don't know, if you meet a person with a fucking funny name, you know what I mean? Like, you ever go like, oh my God, your name's this, and the person just scowls at you because they're like, fucking heard it every day of their life, right? So like, with Comet Ping Pong Pizza, I immediately realized these people are way over it. Like, they've heard all of the jokes. They don't give a shit. They keep getting attacked by Proud Boys and stuff. And it is a real, true blue punk venue. Like, they really like putting on shows there. And all these musicians have worked there over the last couple decades and stuff. I know people that have worked there now that I think about it, And they just want it to be over. So the vibe immediately turned from, like, making jokes about adrenochrome and stuff to, like, as I was hosting those shows, I suddenly felt like, no, we have to protect Comet Ping Pong Pizza, like it's the fucking Alamo or something, like, from all these other motherfuckers. And I noticed when I was talking about, like, radical shit on stage and stuff, the people there are very cool and they're socially minded. It's a punk bar and shit, so they would be like, cheering for it and shit. And I came to really love Common Ping Pong. I think I want to go back at some point, so keep an eye out for that if you live out there. But yeah, no, man. Funny thing about jokes is like the adrenochrome stuff is going to be only funny to you and me because we don't actually live there.
Actually, a little side note here. I have my own music project called Neo Be Glory, and I'm currently working on another album that's more folk punk, anti-folk, comedic rock.
Cool.
And Zach here helps edit and mix my songs because I'm a casual. The one that we did today before this podcast, one of them was called "I'd Walk a Mile for Adrenochrome."
Yeah.
So I know what you mean there.
I mean, it's hilarious, right?
Yeah.
It's a subjective.
All right.
thing.
So aside from Comet Ping Pong, were there any other stops that you consider like your favorites or particularly notable?
Yeah. Bottom's Lounge in Chicago was a great fucking show.
The Bomb Lounge. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been there once.
Yeah, that was a great venue. I think that might have been one of our best shows for sure. Like, it was the last show we did with. No, it wasn't the last show, but it was the show that I think that We Are the Union and Max finally played sound system, so it was a big event. And I just remember, oddly enough, as a comic, like something I wasn't thinking about that much, and then really started to as we kept going, and I kept doing sound checks, and then like realizing how big the rooms we were playing were, and realizing how they were set up for music and not comedy and stuff. I started learning a little bit about sound, and then I fucking talked to the guy at Bottom Lounge in Chicago when we were doing a sound check, and he sort of went like, I could tell he was thinking, and he took a mental note, and went, yeah, and then he turned a knob or whatever, and that show I had a really good set, and I could tell that he was killing it as a sound guy, as odd as that sounds for like a comedy thing. And I went and I was smoking a cigarette after my set, and I was talking to him, and then he just went off, and he was like, okay, so the way they mix comedy specials on Netflix is you hear a lot of this big sound in the middle here, and he was just going off like things that I had never thought about, in terms of like how to make a joke project to the back of a room like that. And I was like, this fucking rules. Like, God, I wish I had this guy with me every fucking show, because then I wouldn't have these problems where like, oh, there's a drunk wall of people talking, and then the people behind them can't hear or whatever. So that one, I mean, just shouts out to the fucking crew there. That place was great. And then La Poisson Rouge here in New York City was fucking great. We played a really cool place in Greensboro. It's not Greenville, Greensboro, North Carolina, I think. That was, I don't want to say surprisingly cool because that's an insult, but like, I mean, we almost didn't play because there were like shootings and shit happening all week. Just some local like drug war.
Very cool place. Bad shootings.
And it's the South, and you get a little bit nervous about just it being like, a bunch of hateful, whatever, fucking conservatives. But that show is really cool because when you live in a place that's full of hateful conservatives, there's often a vibrant counterculture, because everyone who does not feel safe around, the fucking Confederate flag guy has to get together and sort of hang out at the same bar or whatever. So, like, the people that came out, I think mostly to see, like, We Are the Union, because they're, like, this big queer thing, they were fucking great. And I had one of the best sets of the tour there, oddly enough, which was a place I was kind of nervous about. But yeah, no, there was a bunch, man. It was a great tour.
Yeah, what do you think of Grand Rapids, where I'm from, and you and I met?
Right, I had a great time at Grand Rapids. Yeah, that venue was great, and the audience, I could just tell. I think the Midwest is just great for comedy because it's a thing where you're drinking beer and you're on stage and you're like just kind of going, hey, is everyone drinking beer? I'm also drinking beer and having a good time. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's especially, I guess, for like, you know, the type of stand-up that works with rock and roll and stuff. I just remember immediately going, oh, this is the right vibe. Like, everyone here is having a good time in the way that I have it, which is with a slight amount of desperation. There's a slight amount of there's nothing else to do, let's get fucked up kind of going on. But I kind of, yeah, I remember thinking like I could move here. Like when I was in Grand Rapids, I get the culture.
Oh yeah, it's officially Beer City, USA. We won it one year, then the whole competition ended. So we're forever Beer City, USA.
That's awesome. I'm happy for you.
Is that? Yeah, and second biggest city in Michigan, right after Detroit. So
Cool.
yeah, did you explore Grand Rapids at all when you were here?
Yeah, I went and ate at Founders, the brewery.
Yeah,
had a
the big brewery there.
really messed up sandwich at Founders. It was really good. Hung out a little bit. Went to that dive bar around the corner from the venue. That god damn, I had something called a frozen pudding shot. I had like 5 of them because we went there at the end of the night, and I asked about the frozen pudding shots, which I guess is like a kind of a play on a Jello shot. Like instead of Jello, it's pudding. And
Yeah, that sounds like something that would come out of Grand Rapids.
yeah, totally. And I remember I was like, so I asked about them, but it was close to last call, and so the bartender went, "Look, I got to throw all these out anyway. Throw some money at me, I'll give you the whole thing." And I was like, I understand exactly what's happening. Yes, here's like a $10 bill or something, and I just got this bucket of like frozen pudding. And God, I mean, it gave me like all sorts of acid reflux or whatever. I remember eating it.
A frozen hangover.
There were Heath Bar Jellos with like vodka in it. And Reed, the front lady of We Are the Union, was particularly disgusted with that. I remember it was pretty cool. Yeah, I know. It was cool. It was definitely the type of place I'd go back to and hang out at.
All right. Well, like I said, folks, I was there first time I met you, and we got the greatest picture ever together.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. The reception to you in Grand Rapids was good, from what I saw. Overall, how was the reception to your performances on this tour?
Mostly good. I think I figured out how to do the show after a couple of shows. We started the first one. Oh, I mean, the first show in Austin was just a banger of a show, so I don't think it really mattered that maybe I hadn't quite perfected the set yet. But I started to. I was thinking a lot about this because this is a fucking cool thing to be asked to do as a comic, but it is not an easy thing to do, opening for bands, especially ones with like a real following. So I was a little worried because sometimes, every single situation you're in on a tour like this is you getting to a city, and no matter how much it's been advertised that I am opening for Eve 6, most people when they go to a thing aren't researching the thing. They just fucking buy a ticket. And if you see a person's name, you probably assume it's like a singer-songwriter or something. Why wouldn't you? Makes perfect sense. So people are just thrown by the comedy part of it, like a lot. And there's no one that goes on before me and goes, hey, just so you know, there's a comedy coming out. So it's just my job to deal with that. And I feel like I did a pretty good job. Like by the end of it, looking back on the whole thing, I don't fucking think just anybody could have done this. Like I felt like I was using a lot of skills that I built over the years and stuff. But there was like some pushback, I did my best to alleviate it by basically noticing what was going on show-wise, which is I would go out, I'd go before We Are the Union. Their fans are punk and queer, and they're going to listen to all of my intellectual bullshit and appreciate it for what it is, right? But then so that's the easy set, kind of. Although sometimes I wouldn't, there wouldn't be enough people there or something like that, so it'd be still kind of rough. And then the second set I'd go on before Eve 6, and at that point you got people who are drunk. They are often the types of people that didn't show up to watch the opening band, much less me, So right there, that tells you something about where these people are coming from, which is that they just fucking came to hear the song from the radio. They're not here out of curiosity to support anyone else. They're actively against the thing, the acts that the band they came to see booked. They might not even understand that's how it works. And they're just kind of normies and like are consumers of music rather than like listeners in a way, right? So a lot of these people, I figured that out, and so what I did is for the second set I would do a lot of filthy shit and a lot of like jokes about drugs and stuff, because people that are sort of there, confused, going, who's this guy? Why is he yelling at me? Where's my music? If I know this both as a comic and a bartender. Drunk people are kind of easy to herd, because you're just like, you're less drunk than them. You're just kind of smarter than them. So, if someone's angry that you exist for a moment, you can sort of throw out a who's drinking tonight, and then they're like, oh, yeah, they start yelling,
I'm drinking. Yeah.
Yeah, or you start talking about sex and drugs, and they start, wooing and stuff like that. And there's all these subtle things I picked up to like kind of corral these people. And I think I did pretty good and the best that can probably be done in that situation. But there's some people there's no overcoming, and so I did have a few people yell things like, "Where's the music?" or like just call me, straight up just call me a fag or whatever, or just like what throw a thing or whatever, and that's also not something I'm gonna like get too upset about, because I know that I'm not supposed to be in this situation technically, but also to some extent, where's the music? Fucking fine. But the homophobic slurs and shit, especially after fucking We Are the Union went on, like that's something where I'm gonna throw something back at them a little bit, I think. And that was just a general force that was there at every show, and then most of the time I think I sort of overcame them, or at the very least it was a detente. But there's only one or two shows where I go like, they won. Like get to the end of the set and be like, all right, fuck it, here, go watch Eve 6.
All right, so it's been about 3 months since the tour happened. Looking back now, what's your overall perception of the tour for you? Was it good? Would you want to do it again?
Yeah, no, it was great. Of course I would want to do it again. It was more lucrative than usual touring is. It was a fucking adventure. It was a really good time. The shows were really good, for the most part. And, it was also easier than touring at the level that I generally tour at. Usually I drive myself, you know what I mean? And U6 has a tour bus, and it's great. It felt like I feel like Max really treated me to something. Like he likes me and knows he's got some pull in this world, and that I'm down here in the gutter, and so I think he thinks it's for whatever reason he enjoys reaching down and and treating a guy like me to the good life for a few days or whatever. So this was probably a level of comfort touring that I don't know if I'll ever achieve again. So of course I would do it again. I was reading Laura Jane Grace's book before I went on tour, and there's a part in it where she talks about going from driving around in I'm sorry?
That's the lead singer of Against Me, isn't it?
Yes.
All right.
Trans woman, previously lived as Tom Gable, right? So she talks about being in Against Me and like living in a van and stuff, and you know, touring as a punk band and it being a complete nightmare and shit all the time, which is something, you know, more of us can relate to, I think. And then talked about when Against Me blew up and getting to travel on a tour bus and stuff. And the thing is, when you travel on a tour bus, you get to hang out and get drunk all night after the show and then go back and sleep on the bus, and then the bus driver drives you while you're sleeping to the next city. So you just wake up in the parking lot of the next venue. You don't have to crash on someone's couch, spring for a hotel, have this crazy mad dash where you're running late to the show the next day. All that stuff goes away. And I remember reading her book, and she was talking about how boring it was at that point. She was like, this actually got boring. It got so easy, you know? And she had been trained to be like, you know, like, on, you know, prepared for anything at all times. So it's like this odd reversal. And I really related to that on the tour bus. And like, I just tried to enjoy it while it was happening, because I was like, yeah, I'm probably not, I mean, unless fucking next year the Smashing Pumpkins decide they want me to open for them or some shit, you know, probably not gonna happen again. So I mean, at that level, for fucking sure, I loved it. It was like summer camp or something, man. It was crazy.
Yeah. Next year you go on tour with the band that did Closing Time.
Oh hell yeah, Semisonic.
Yeah.
I bet they have a whole fucking fan base and shit, just like E6. But no, I mean, I'm probably gonna go on tour again in like my own car or something, and then that's gonna be quite the depressing feeling, setting out and going, oh wait, back down to you know, here. But whatever. I mean, I love touring. Touring is like, it's exhausting though. When you're doing it, it's so, everything's moving so quickly, everything's at such a high velocity that you kind of have a come down when you get out of it, and you go like, all right, I never want to do that again. And then a few months later, you know, you start to go, okay, all right, I'll start planning it again and stuff. It's like you said, it's been 3 months. If we had talked on or right after the tour, I might have been like, I'm never fucking doing this again. But I've gotten to the point where I'm like, all right, I'll get in the fucking van again.
All right. Enough with that part there. We're going to talk about subject now particular to you that I'm very interested in. All right. First of all, when you and I were going back over emails, hashing out this now legendary interview, you mentioned that you're working on a project since you got back. Can you tell us anything about it?
Well, I haven't been working on it that much. Yeah, I think I'm gonna write a book. But
oh, really?
Yeah. It's something I've just had in me for a long time, but right now it's just it's scraps. I got bogged down with other bullshit, like I was describing at the top of the show, and it kind of got me off of that. So, so I'm very busy, but that is one of these big projects that I've got, like, really, now that touring is out of the way and shit for the time being, I think I'm gonna work on for the rest of the year if I get the time. I used to write a lot. I think I was pretty good at it. I wrote like satire columns and stuff in newspapers, and like, it's a weird skill that, like, once you start podcasting is like a form of writing, but it's not literally written, you know? You still conceive of ideas and then put them on paper sometimes and shit. But I really enjoy the written word, and I've just got like this huge, I can just feel it. There's just a lot of stuff in my head that I need to process artistically, I think. And stand-up is a fine medium, but it's kind of limited and stuff. I like telling stories, so I don't know. If you're following me, keep an ear out for that, because I have a lot of thoughts about, like, the way the entertainment industry works, and, you know, the punk scene and scenes in general and the podcast scene and like this weird fucking thing that I've sort of lived through over the last 5 years being in Brooklyn and being around, alt, like leftist podcasters and writers and comics and stuff like that. And I think, I just think somebody needs to write the book about it.
All right. What I want to talk to you about is your work ethic or your work process. When I first got into Pod Damn America and you, it was in the midst of check out all these other podcasts like Street Fight Radio, Chapo. But one thing that I guess you stood out more than others is what you've talked about was like your work ethic and even your analysis of things. Like my two favorite Pod Damn America episodes are the two ones that you did solo. I forget what one's called. The other one was called Why Do Chuds Listen to Lenny Bruce?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What? So, like, I guess say I was kind of analyzing what I think your work process or your ethic is, and to me, it seems like it's highly influenced by anti-capitalist politics, DIY, punk ethos. Am I right at all?
Yeah.
What is your work process?
No, absolutely. Totally. Yeah, man. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like I was saying, like I used to write, and I feel like I had this hole in me where I need that. That's part of what I do. So every once in a while, I do write an episode of the podcast. I made the podcast like basically at the beginning purposely vague in concept. So, a lot of podcasts write themselves into a corner, I think. I've been doing stand-up for like 15 years, by the way. Let me back up here. I've been doing stand-up for like 15 years. Podcasting has been around a lot longer than the recent version of it. It's recent, like, evolution where now it's a thing where three dorks get together on a Zoom call in Brooklyn and talk about the news or whatever. Before that, it was no one knew what to do with the medium yet, and a lot of it was people trying to do what Mark Maron did, because he kind of revolutionized it in a certain way and made it like interviews. And then, Rogan, just sort of 4 hours of sitting around talking to some dumbass person and smoking weed or whatever the fuck. That became one version of it. And I used to listen to a show called Race Wars, embarrassingly enough, but it was a bunch of New York comedians, almost like radio, like they were all hanging out in a room, and they all went crazy and alt-right after that, and kind of informed what happened with me too. But I was thinking about the form of it a lot, and then I also noticed. So basically, this thing would happen where every comedian needs to have a podcast. It was like a side gig that you had to have. It was part of your portfolio if you're trying to get other jobs, to show people I have all these connections. I know how to produce and make a thing. Whatever the fuck you were trying to put out there. It just became a thing where you have to have a website. You also have to have a podcast. It's just part of the way the job was shaped. And I thought about that, and I was like, well, I mean, I don't really give a shit about certain things like that in my line of work, but it was like, well, I'm glad this is a thing that people are treating like that, because I like podcasting. I always liked the medium or whatever. And I noticed a lot of people, though, would get frustrated because they would make like a show where it was like, every episode we ask these 10 questions, or we play this game show game or whatever. And eventually that it's a lot of fun on like a long road trip to listen to like 10 episodes of a show like that, but eventually it runs out of juice because you're just like, okay, I just get what this is. I made PDA, when I started it, purposely vague. So when people ask me what it's about, I just go, I don't know. It's me and my 3 friends, and we're leftists, and we do whatever we want. The reason being is I didn't want to pigeonhole us into having to do the same thing every week and have a guest and ask them this. All right, at the end of our episodes, we always ask the same question, like that sort of thing. I was like, no. What I want, and this is where the DIY stuff comes in, you were talking about, was instead of having a job at a newspaper where I have an editor and I have to pitch ideas to them and then they tell me whether I can put them on, I want a thing that is public facing, that always exists, that anytime I get an idea, I'm the editor. I'm free to throw it up there and then let it sink or swim, depending on just whether it works or not, and not have to be like confined through capitalism in so many ways, what sells like newspapers and clicks and stuff like that. So, every week, me and the other two guys I do my show with, we have like a group chat or a meeting or a Zoom call. We go, what are we thinking this week? And someone could go, I want to interview this person, or someone could go, I had this great idea. What if we played D&D or whatever? Or someone could, and it's supposed to be like whatever you want. Like this is a little bit DIY and a little bit anarcho of me. Like I was like this should give us freedom rather than constrict us, like creatively, And I write, and that's why, I set it up to where every once in a while I can go, hey, Alex, Anders, take the week off. I wrote a thing. I'm going to do an episode as that or whatever. And I really like doing those solo episodes because it gives me like a medium to put out what it used to just be like. I guess before I had the podcast, it would have just been like a blog or something, or an attempt at writing a book that never gets fucking published or something like that. So, that is both anti-capitalist in nature because it fucking, I think, I set up an alternative like zine type situation here, that I think I purposely did that because I think that trying to publish through someone like I used to work for the Observer, it's owned by Jared Kushner, and like there's stuff that might not make it through that editing process or whatever. That is going on there, and also the DIY stuff, like, yeah, I mean, it's that's all one big ball of wax or whatever. But no, you hit the nail on the head, man. I mean, that's why I do that shit. And like, yeah, I remember I wrote that fucking thing about Lenny Bruce just because like I was thinking about all this stuff that was going on in the world and in like the stupid culture war at large. That's reflective of like what's going on in economics, but also, a microcosm of it exists in my niche subculture being a comedian and stuff. And like that's what I live for. When I'm doing shit correctly, I make stuff like that. When I'm busy, I go, okay, I'll be a stand-up comedian this week and we'll joke about what the fuck happened to Elon Musk on Twitter or whatever. But no, I appreciate that, man. Those are my favorite things to do.
Okay, side question I wanted to ask you there. Lenny Bruce, is he still funny?
Absolutely not. He's the greatest comedian of all time, and he's not funny. It's funny how that works, isn't it? No, I mean, he's historically important, and I mean, there's some stuff every once in a while, because I am a nerd about him, like I'll go back and listen to his shit, and there's just some stuff that is evergreen. He makes a joke about something that just fucking still persists, like something about men and women or whatever the fuck, although that's arguably not evergreen. But for the most part, comedy is extremely temporal, and I think he was really important because he was temporal. Like, he was talking about what was happening in the world at that time. So by nature of being so important in the moment in the 60s, that means he's not going to be something you can listen to fucking 60 years later or whatever, or almost 60 years later. And it like, it sounds as funny as the joke of the day on Twitter or whatever.
God, I'm gonna sound like a total complete hipster here, but I still find Lenny. I agree with you on Bruce there, but I do find his few spoken word musical performances really endearing. Sure, that's the first thing I saw was he did like a spoken word musical piece called All Alone. I just really loved it.
Yeah.
Then I heard his comedy. I'm like, oh wow, that's completely different.
I mean, comedy was so much different back then. I don't know. I guess another thing I should say is like a better answer to that question isn't no, he's not funny. It's not necessarily, like, because people, I think, often want the thing that's right to be the thing that's funny, and there's not a 1-to-1 correlation there. Like, the answer is, maybe you might find some of the stuff he said still funny. You might not. like that's completely irrelevant to whether what he did was important or whatever, or whether he's like an important artifact in history or whatever. You know,
All right.
if we went through his entire body of work, there'd be some cool shit in there, and then there would be some shit where I'd be like, who the fuck is Spiro Agnew? Like, what is he talking about? You know, it's not gonna pop the same way a joke about Kamala or whatever pops this week. You know?
Who is this city councilor that he's bitching about?
Yeah,
who cares?
You wouldn't know. It wouldn't be in the ether, you know.
All right. So when it comes to the work process, do you have any? Is there any differences in the approach when it comes to you doing stand-up comedy and podcasting?
Yeah, totally. There's a really slight important difference I try to keep in mind, which is that podcasting is often deliberately political, like especially just our show. The point of it is that we are meeting to discuss, you know, it's like a study group or something. We're meeting to discuss this specific project we have that has an agenda, and it's, you know, we're trying to deconstruct and construct and stuff like that. And it is propaganda a lot of the times. It's often not funny because the point is the politics and the comedy is the second thing. You know, it's the secondary element that hangs in the background a lot of the time. Stand-up comedy is the other way around. And I think that you're only really a good artist, you know, because it's art, right? Podcast is propaganda, stand-up comedy is art. I think you're only doing art right if the art of it itself is the point, and then the secondary element is all the other shit. So, I always tell people, like, stand-up is not my stand-up act. What I find to be funny and to, like, work and to make me laugh, which is kind of most important as a starting point, or to be something I find funny. It's often not overtly political. It's not Rage Against the Machine. It's not beating you over the head with the fucking thing. But there's politics in it. It's just that I didn't start with that shit. It's like I started with writing down notes about shit that I think is funny and then writing it into bits to get to those punchlines, which are the things that, you know, punctuate and make the act flow or whatever. Because I'm writing my thoughts and I think certain things, you know, and I think about politics a lot, and there's going to be stuff in there, but it's stuff that is in there, like, on accident, the way that, like, the barrel of, you know, that they kept the whiskey in is still kind of in it at the end process when you're pouring it out the glass bottle. It's not the point, right? The point was the corn or whatever the fuck. The main thing that gave it the flavor, you know? And I think that that's, like, important because you can tell when you are listening to somebody who did it the other way around and they're overtly trying to capitalize off of having certain politics, so they're just getting claps and stuff like that instead of, like, going for laughs, you know, which is annoying. Both with liberals and with shitty fucking libertarian types, you know, you get, you know, either someone who's just like, you know, every joke is like, and men make more money than women this much on the dollar, and everyone claps, and you're like, okay, that's not like a gut laugh thing. You're just sort of like pandering. And then with like libertarian shithead types, you know, it's, you can't say anything anymore because the woke mob comes after you, and then there's these frothing at the mouth fucking idiots that are just like clapping at that. It's the same thing. That is not gut laughter. That's fucking something else. You know, I try to start with funny. It often, I think it often disappoints people that listen to PDA who like then want to come out and see a show because they're politics junkies, so they often think that we're going to be up there and, you know, talking about destroying capitalism. And then I'm like, the funniest thing that happened to me today is, you know, that I thought of this dumb thing about, you know, a movie I watched or whatever, or like a drug I did, or, you know, was some weird experience I had, and, you know, whatever.
Wait, why is he joking about these popper things.
Yeah.
He should be talking about Wall Street right now.
But the thing is, if you make art, like the truth is a secondary element, and it's in there. And so like that joke I have about poppers also has like, if you're paying attention, there is commentary about like gender and the drug war and stuff like that. It's not the fucking point. I'm not selling that like, oh, you agree with me that drugs should be legal or that toxic masculinity is stupid, right? Because that is kind of the point of that joke, is that, you know, for any of your listeners who don't know, I have a joke about doing poppers and then realizing like that they're a really good drug and that the only reason I didn't do them was because of like toxic masculinity and how you think stuff is for gay people, so you don't do it, and then you find out like, oh, poppers are this great drug, right? But that's not the point. And you also see with people with bad politics, their politics come through as the secondary element in their comedy, because they'll sit around and come up with what they think is funny. So like right-wing fucking chuds, you know, will come up with stuff that makes them laugh, and it's often just base whatever, you know, shit about dicks and pussies and asses, which is like, you know, kind of the funniest stuff on earth. You know, that's why it's at the center of so much comedy. But then in the way they construct their like jokes around them, you'll hear like these elements of misogyny and stuff like that, and it's hard to grab someone and explain like, I found the tea leaves in the thing you made that reflects something about you. But like, you do comedy long enough, I think you can like see it in there, you know?
Oh god, that's almost a perfect segue into the next segment. But yeah, so you talked about how you're putting together a book right now. Is there any other plans to branch out to other artistic venues like music or art itself? You know,
Oh man,
painting, all that shit.
God, I mean, I do like all sorts of shit, but it's like hobbies to me. Like every once in a while, I'll, you know, fucking bust out the notepad or like a tablet or something and try to draw like I used to when I was a kid, and it's for fun, but it's extremely serious. And I have a guitar, and I kind of, when I have the time, I like tooling around with it and trying to make punk music and stuff. But fuck it, I'm tone deaf and I can't draw a crooked line. Like, these are not natural things to me. I kind of have, and I'm 35 years old, you know, so like there's like, I think about that a lot, and I go, can you start playing music when you're 35? And then I think, well, anyone that tells you can't is a loser, and like you should just do stuff like that with your time. But I also have so much respect for like art forms, having the perspective that I have about writing jokes, that like I would not like insult a musician friend of mine by asking them to like take what I'm doing that seriously or like book it or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, that's why I think most of the time whenever I give Zach here a song, please take me seriously.
I tell people why I do comedy, because I wanted to play music and just I'm not good at it, you know? So like, it might be my fucking personal side project that no one ever sees for the rest of my life. But, you know, I mean, I've also had friends who have like felt like that, and then like you listen to their thing that they spent 10 years on, and you go, this is fucking great, you should go play it. So like, I try to keep that in mind, and maybe if I ever get there, like, I might, you know, at some point in my life play a fucking set somewhere or something. But I have the big distinction in my head between like the thing that I majored in, you know, like the thing that I put the fucking time into and have like confidence and some level of authority on, versus like other stuff where I would have to approach it as just the most humble fucking student, you know. But I like music, and you know, maybe someday, probably won't be that good, but it might feel good to make it.
All right, that was a very serious portion. Now let's get on to a real fun one.
All right,
poppers.
Hell yeah, let's talk about it.
That's actually one of my favorite jokes that you do and that you return to all the time, is a little known drug called poppers. Zach, for all the listeners who don't know what this wonder drug is, can you give a brief summary?
Did you say Jake or Zach?
Jake. Oh wait, Fuck.
All right.
All right, I'm out of it, dude.
No, it's all right.
Anyway, Jake, could you give a brief summary of what poppers are?
Sure.
To those who don't know.
I thought we were going to get a guest explanation for a second. No, poppers are poppers are a drug that I guess originated like way back. Like they were kind of popular in the disco era. I heard that they used to pump them into the air conditioning at Studio 54.
Oh, Jesus,
yeah,
really?
I don't know. Somebody told me that. I don't know if it's true, but like it's one of those things like Quaaludes or something, just drug from the past. Except Quaaludes aren't around anymore. Poppers are, right? And so poppers is amyl nitrate, which is a like a chemical. It comes in a little jar. It's often sold as tape head cleaner, because I guess that was the thing you could use it for, was to clean like cassette tapes or something. But it's one of those legal loopholes where like no one's cleaning their tape heads with this shit. It's it's a drug that you can get on like the weird like other shelf at like a head shop. Everyone goes in to buy bongs and stuff, but there's like often these other little weird things, like Whippets is one that's maybe a little bit more popular. People know you can inhale CO2 or whatever and like get a little high off it. But poppers are, the little jar. Rush is the main brand that you'll be familiar with. You unscrew the top, you take a sniff, it gives you this crazy head rush and whatever, and that's the whole drug. But the other important detail of them is that they're apparently very popular in the gay community, because apparently that head rush does this thing to your like bloodstream or whatever, blood pressure, where it loosens everything up, including your asshole. And so like people that fuck in the ass, like the person getting fucked will use poppers to like loosen things up or whatever. And it also, it kind of puts you down in the space or whatever for a little bit. It's a crazy fucking drug. But so the joke I have is about how like I just started doing poppers at one point because I'm a dirtbag and I didn't know the other part. And then, we get into the toxic masculinity and like whatever. And then I'm yelling like, you should do poppers. Straight people should do this. They don't do them because because you think people are going to call you gay or whatever. And like it's an absurd situation because you're like screwing yourself out of an enjoyable drug experience. But they're still legal and you can get them at head shops and stuff. And it's just one of those crazy things that you come across if you party enough and hang out in dirtbag, DIY shows and stuff. They've always been very funny to me. I don't know why.
Yeah, so when did you first hear about poppers?
I remember an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia a long time ago where they were doing them. And
I think I remember that.
Yeah, it was kind of funny, and I don't really remember the context of it. But then it's like I literally think like at one point just at like a punk show or someone just had them, and I went, oh yeah, I like had vaguely kind of heard about this in, like movies and stuff. You like sniff it, and then I did it, and then later on learned all the stuff about it, and then that's kind of how that joke formed or whatever. But then like after that, I mean, you see them at drugstores, you see them at sex stores. Eventually in my life, someone I was hooking up with had them, and I went, oh, right, you can use these for sex. Okay, cool. But yeah, it just kind of came out of left field. I think that It's Always Sunny episode might have done something for poppers. It might have brought them back into the fucking, the conversation or something. I'm not sure.
Okay. Honestly, you have a lot of great jokes about them, especially on Twitter. I think you did like one time you posted a picture of Macho Man Randy Savage and said that he was wearing the Rush colors.
Oh hell yeah, red and yellow, man.
Yep. Yeah, but you joke about it, but do you do poppers on the regular? Is that part of your life or no?
You know what? Yes, but no. I don't know how to explain that. I've done that joke a lot. It works when you're opening for bands and stuff. It kind of stuck around in my act like more than other material does because it's specifically good for that situation. So I've done it so much that I've had nights where people were like, holy shit, do you do poppers? And I'll go like, at that point in my life I had like not done them in years and been like, no, actually, jokes aren't always true. Like, it's an exaggerated thing about an experience I had a long time ago. But if I'm being honest with you, recently I started bartending again, and so because of that, I became, very much enmeshed back in the party world. They've shown back up, and I was doing them the other night. In fact, actually, hold on, check this out. I have a jar of poppers right here, right on my desk.
Okay, that's not Rush. What is that?
No, it's Super Rush.
Oh, Super Rush.
Yeah, it's like their.
Oh shit! Oh fuck!
I don't know what the fuck the difference is. I think it costs the same, but yeah, no, they're around. I don't know. Your drugs are weird. You get older and you start to figure out which ones work for you and which ones don't. I can't smoke weed anymore, like at all. It gives me like crazy panic attacks and stuff. But I like to drink beer and smoke cigarettes, and every once in a while do a popper. It's kind of where I'm at.
Very nice. Yeah, I only did poppers once, and it was a decade ago with a partner. We were hooking up, get high, have sex, etc.
Mm-hmm.
We were just talking about one day, and she is like, "Yeah, I've heard about this thing called poppers. I think I want to try it sometime." Then we looked it up and everything. And then like the next day, I went to a local adult bookstore, and it wasn't Rush. I think it was like Amsterdam, I think it was called.
Oh, I was gonna say, because I learned recently that Double Scorpio is the good one. If anyone's out there and they're looking into trying this,
yeah. So yeah, we tried it, and yeah, I wasn't a big fan. Like it just gave me the rush, and then I got that headache. I was like, oh god, fuck this.
Yeah, the hangover you get from them for like a little while is kind of it's not great. I have them around because it's something I think I got impulsive about when I was like already drunk. One of those types of things.
Yeah. So only did it once, and we weren't really good at it, so we didn't do it since.
That's all right. Drugs are all about finding what works for you.
No, I did make a pretty good tweet the other day. It got 2 likes, so that's good for me. Where I said like I can't do poppers anymore due to my high blood pressure.
Nicely
Boom,
done.
got him. 2 likes. No
Nice.
retweets.
All
right.
Wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, that's the end of the poppers segment. Final one, home stretch. Again, Jake, thank you for taking the reins and hosting this thing. I am so fucking sorry that happened.
No, it's all good. You don't usually do this on Zoom, right?
No, actually, I think this is like the 3rd or 4th interview I've ever done on Zoom.
Yeah, then don't worry about
this
it.
honestly has never happened before on previous ones.
Well,
yeah, we'll talk about it later.
I'm pretty long-winded. It's probably why it happened.
No, we've had some pretty long ones too, but yeah, it's weird, internet. All right, final topic I want to talk to you about. And it's been something I've been interested in since 2020 happened, and I asked this for like all the real big important guests, especially someone who's in a position such as you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about COVID, specifically COVID in New York.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll ask my favorite question that I ask guests about this topic. Where were you when you realized that COVID was going to be a big deal? Like, what was your oh shit, oh fuck moment?
I think I have a pretty good one, man. Because like, so my podcast, PDA, Pod Damn America, it was like, it was doing pretty well, and politically, what was going on at the time in early 2019 was the climax, almost the full swing of the Democratic primaries, right? So we were doing these shows at a place called Secret Loft live every time they had debates, and it was really fun. Like we would have, we would just do the thing where you just have mics and you sit on stage and you just do Mystery Science Theater at the fucking debates. We'd make fun of Pete Buttigieg and all that shit. and like James Adomian came by for one of them. Like they were good. They were going really well. And then we also got asked to perform a live podcast at Caroline's, which is this huge comedy club in Times Square. It's one of the big ones in New York. I don't think that they understood our politics necessarily. I think that one of the bookers wasn't a leftist. I think he was more right-wing, but he hated Elizabeth Warren, and he listened to our show, and he also heard us hating Elizabeth Warren, and then he was like, cool. So he booked us, and we did a live show, and it went pretty well, and it went so well that he said, hey, come on back to the office, and he pulled out the calendar, a big roll-out calendar, and he unfurled it across the table, and he went, here's the rest of the year. Let's book you guys a show for every month the rest of the year. You can talk about everything up until the election, you know? And we were like, damn, all right, cool. We got ourselves a residency, you know? And also, I had just had this other weird thing happen where I had gone to Philadelphia to go see a buddy of mine open for Eddie Pepitone. Oh, wait, I got on the show. That's right. I did a spot opening for Eddie Pepitone, too. And I took a megabus down there. And I had this really weird thing happen where I was on the megabus, and one of the megabus workers came up to me and was like kind of trying to tap me on the shoulder, and I was like kind of trying to ignore them because I was like, oh no, am I in trouble, you know? And I was wearing headphones, and then they were like, sir, and I took off my headphones, and I was like, yes, and they went, you won, and I went, I won what? And then they pulled out this big ass golden megabus ticket, and they said you won the golden megabus ticket because you picked this seat. And I was like,
yeah, I remember that.
what the fuck is that? And then they showed me, and it was good for like free megabus rides for the whole year, right? Or the whole next year. That happened in December of 2019. So all this shit was keyed up, and it was supposed to be like this great career year for me, and then COVID happened. And like I remember because we had booked another one of those live debate shows, and a comic who ended up being like really, really germophobic, I found out. So 2020 really fucked with this person.
Oh.
We booked them, and they dropped out, and they were like, I'm actually getting really freaked out about this thing that everyone's been talking about. And looking back on it, I'm like, oh, that was the canary in the coal mine. Like I should have listened to this person because they were so germophobic. They had a little bit more of a like insight in what was happening. But I mean, I fucking almost put on a show, you know, that week in probably February, right? Of like 2020 or of 2020. Yeah, that's weird. I mean, we went and canvassed, and I remember like we didn't go into one of the fucking nursing homes because they were like, oh, the COVID thing is going on in there. It was weird. It was like isolated. It wasn't all the news at one point. And yeah, I just kind of remember canceling that last show and then deciding to stay home for like a week and thinking, okay, maybe this will all blow over. And like, God, and then all hell just broke loose. It was really weird. I was also like, I just started dating somebody, and so I like went over to her house, and then I just didn't leave for a year. But I thought it was going to be temporary. Yeah, man, that was a weird time.
All right, what was your daily life in New York like during this time?
Like during lockdown?
Yeah, during like the very beginning, the worst parts of it.
I got food poisoning the first week of it, and I kind of had a weird moment where I was like, is this COVID? But then I realized it wasn't. It was something else. And I so I went over to my, at the time, girlfriend's place, and I remember thinking, well, so if everyone has to stay in, like, she was like, you should stay here. And then I talked to my roommates about it, because I live in this fucking stupid punk attic thing. And, you know, I was like, well, punk houses work in a certain way here because everyone is busy all the time and everyone's working all the time. So you're never all home. You aren't all home all the time. You know what I mean? But when they started laying out the rules for lockdown, I was like, okay, if all 4 of us are here all the time, that is, that's going to suck for the foreseeable future. So I'll go hang out at her place. That makes sense. And I went over there, and then her roommates were like both getting ready to leave town permanently. One of them hated me from the internet because I, was being associated with Chapo and all sorts of stuff, and just thought I was like a misogynist or whatever. And then like, maybe she started to warm up to me after a while because I don't think I am a misogynist, but it's not my call to make. But we just hung out and we'd be watching reality TV, and she would go like, well, "You're actually nice," and I go, I think so,
I go, gee, thanks.
But at first, when I had food poisoning, she was really freaked out that I had brought COVID into their place. So like, it was just tense, and I kept having to look up the symptoms and go, massive vomiting and diarrhea is not a COVID thing, I don't think, yet, or at least it wasn't at that point. So it was weird, and then, yeah, I mean, then me and her just lived in that apartment in a neighborhood I don't really live in for like the lockdown part of the beginning of the year, and it was just so bizarre. I'm glad you asked this because I feel like we have just collectively social amnesia about this. Like, does everyone remember this? It was so traumatic and weird. And yeah, I remember thinking, well, at least I've got the podcast, and I was watching a lot of movies and stuff, and we adopted some kittens, and it was fine, but it was just weird because you couldn't go outside. And my thing is, I like to go to a bar and collect my thoughts from time to time, and you couldn't do that. So what I was doing is I was going to the gas station around the corner and then hanging out in the alley next to it, and that was just my bar. I would do that like on Friday nights or whatever, and just sit at a weird fucking traffic cone or whatever, and then just be like, okay, this is kind of serving the same function. And then the police stuff started, and oh fuck, man, I mean, that changed everything, because like then that was when everyone came back out. Like, it kind of realized, because that had happened, like, oh, you can't maybe spread COVID as much outside or whatever. I got arrested, got smashed up by some cops, lost my bike, lost my phone, got unemployment all at the same time on like the same day. And I remember this weird month in New York City where you could walk around and drink on the streets, not so much because they had legalized it, but because the cops just had stopped doing cop shit for like a minute. Like, there was this moment of anarchy in New York City in 2020 that was so fucking cool, and that we'll just never get back. Oh, God. But that was my favorite part, was when you could like go out, and it was like we'd almost taken the city back, and you could just go kind of have a party in the park and stuff. And then,
all right,
yeah.
All right. This is another question I really wanted to ask. Being from Michigan, the Midwest, during at least the beginning of this, everything was focused on New York for the most part, which makes sense. Biggest city in the U.S., Big Apple, and yeah, the media coverage during COVID was not good, to say the least. And so I was wondering, from you being a New Yorker living there, was it as apocalyptic as the media made out to be?
That's interesting. I mean, like, so the media elsewhere, I kind of remember this from talking to my roommate, because one of my roommates, his parents live in Florida, and he goes home and talks to them, and they just like watch Fox News all day, and they kind of would go like, "Are you okay up there?" Because we've heard that it's just, the Warriors is happening or whatever. And then,
Yeah, pretty much, just everybody catching it, just shit getting shut down, borders getting shut down, bodies piling up.
well, yes and no, because the thing is, we would always laugh at his like relatives, but what they were referring to was crime, and the portrayal in the media of New York as having decayed socially during the lockdown was that there was a lot of crime, and that's not true, really. It was designed to like all things right now, all politics in America right now is just boo, there's crime, you need to pay for more cops. That's just, everything can be reduced to that right now. It's really fucking stupid. But there wasn't crime there. It was fucking weird though. I mean, like, when the lockdown happened, there was kind of almost like a military presence at the beginning, and then there was the lockdown, and like at one point Trump flew the Blue Angels over New York without announcing it, and so that was fucking weird because it's New York City where there's like, kind of a thing about that happened a long time ago, and like
Really? I can't think about what happened that long ago that could cause alarm.
yeah, it was fucking crazy, man. And and then when the cops, were kind of on the ropes with the protests, they fucking started putting down curfews and shit, and like really just patrolling the streets, and there were like SUVs and shit, and that was fucking scary. And also with like the crowded hospitals, there were like freezer trucks full of corpses on the streets, and there is an island where they were burying them in like mass graves. That's pretty fucked up.
Oh yeah, that one I remember. Isn't there like an island where it's basically like one giant potter's field?
Yeah, and they would make what's fucked up is that it already was that before COVID. It was a place where they would bury like prisoners and shit, and they would make prisoners bury the bodies.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so it was just already operating. They went, oh great, we already have this. Here you go, prisoner. Fucking bury some COVID bodies, and like, yeah. I mean, all that stuff was bananas, but it wasn't. But I will tell you that's the crazy shit. The crime thing that they were trying to say. So we have to like, fund more cops. That's fucking bullshit. It was mostly just some weird shit was happening, man.
All right. It's been about it's been 2 years. Well, 3 if you believe it started in 2019. Whichever. Does COVID still affect life in New York in any particular way? Or is it all back to, back to normal shit?
Depends who you are, I mean, if people are immunocompromised, I think that they're in kind of a bad situation because, like, everyone else has gone back to normal. People don't wear masks. If you go on the subway, it's like that's 75% of the subway is unmasked. I work a service industry job where I face people. I don't wear a mask, and no one does in the bar. Like, life is back to normal here, and it's, I think a political lesson from the process of quarantining and lockdown is should have been to understand that they individuate politics and problems like this. So, like, I don't think the right thing to do here is to, get judgmental about individual New Yorkers or citizens anywhere who have to go to work and have to go throughout their day not masking all the time and whatnot. I certainly felt like you should be on top of that shit at the beginning of lockdown when we were doing a thing, and if we had done it right, it might have eradicated the disease. But
yeah, that would have been pretty nice.
It would have been cool, right?
If you think about it.
But I mean, the powers that be, the ruling class, etc., and so on and so forth, refused to operate in a way that would have actually changed things by shutting things down and by disrupting the flow of capitalism for the moment. And because of that, we all have to pay for it. And I, did my part. But to be quite honest, like, it's been so long. I don't know if I can catch it. Like, I don't know if I've ever had it. I don't feel like I did in 2020. And I don't think most of the city does. Like, and I think honestly, New York, like, we fucking wore masks here longer than a lot of other places. Like, a year ago, I went to Fire Island on like a vacation, and that's where all these fucking people go on vacations and like out in Long Island and shit. So like suburban type people watch Fox News and shit like that. And I remember thinking, masks are over out here for these people. And then when I went back to New York, everyone was still wearing them on the train and stuff. And I still was last year. And I will, like, if it's like a thing, like if there's an event that is quarantined or something like that, I will. But generally, nah, man, I think COVID's just a fact of life out here now.
All right. Final question of the night, bro. How about the new kid on the block, monkeypox?
Yeah.
How's New York dealing with that?
I have a lot of friends in the sex work industry, and a lot of friends just in the queer community, and those are the two places I've noticed where it's not a joke, where it's spreading for whatever reason the way certain, sexually transmitted diseases do. And there's an echo of like, the HIV AIDS epidemic here, and it's pretty scary. The thing I've noticed most that seems a little bit troubling is people trying to get the vaccine who like do sex work and stuff like that, and being able to get it or not seems like it's something kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, I've heard a lot of jokes about how you have to prove you're gay or whatever. Not really sure the ins and outs. I haven't gotten it. I'm not really having a lot of sex right now, to be quite honest. So I hasn't been a thing that's come up and worried me too much, because that's it's not the only way to get it, but it seems like the main way right now or whatever. I don't know. It's kind of worrying me. It seemed like it's the same thing that happened with fucking COVID. It seemed like the joke of the week that week, and then you go, oh wait, it's not going away, and then before you know it, it's like this huge fucking deal. So
yeah. To get on my soapbox for a sec. Yeah, I think them trying to designate it like they did HIV/AIDS back in the day as a gay disease is one reason why there isn't like a big freak out right now, which technically there should be, because I guess it's not as deadly as COVID, but literally you break out in blotches, lesions. It's a literal plague thing.
Yeah, it looks horrible.
But I'm surprised no one's like, holy shit, oh my God, I gotta get vaccinated. But then they say like, oh, it's a gay disease. I'm not gay. I don't have to worry about it.
Right. I mean, that's also what happened with like HIV and AIDS, right? Is like people thought they couldn't get it because they weren't, gay or having specifically gay sex or whatever, and like, and you still can. So like, you're probably right to call attention to this. I mean, this has been something that like I remember I was joking the other day. I made a tweet about it that was like, my plan to simply ignore this is not, it's growing less and less viable by the day. I mean, that's where it is in my head, is like this thing of like, oh fuck, I guess I should get on top of that, because it doesn't sound like anyone else is going to at some point.
Yeah,
that's probably.
I mean, well, like I said, literal plague boils on your skin. You can actually see the plague upon you, not like COVID where you cough it up.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Actually, I think on the recent episode PEA, you said there's like some polio outbreak in New York or something.
Yeah, apparently that's happening too, man. I don't know. God. Yeah, I should probably pay more attention to this stuff.
Will New York ever get a break?
I don't know, but that's just part of her charm.
All right. Well, my friend, that's the end of the interview. That's all I wanted to talk to you
Cool, man. Well, it was good to talk to you. I'm glad we were finally able to do this. Sorry, I was a little bit distant from the tour, but I think we got it.
No, it's completely fine. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulties and you taking over. I very much appreciate that.
All good.
I don't know if there's any other podcasters that would be willing to do such a thing.
I am a nonstop podcast machine. It was no problem at all.
Yeah, dude. I'm really glad you came on. You're one of my favorite podcasters. Your show, PDA and Why You Mad, is a show that I tune in every week. You know, there's some podcasts that I'll listen to for some time. I'll marathon them.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll take a break and then I'll go to another one. But PA is one that I tune into every week.
Oh, man, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So, promo time. Is there anything you would like to promote? Any upcoming shows, social media, you name it?
Yeah, my handle on all social media is at Feral Jokes. Feral like an animal, jokes like jokes. It's an anagram for my name. It's where I promote everything. I don't really know. I have like no shows booked right now. I'm kind of taking summer vacation, but I'm working on some shit. And I think if you live in New York, especially, I'll have some stuff booked pretty soon. I'm probably going on tour again early next year. And yeah, the podcast is Pod Damn America. We've been referring to it as PDA because it's shorter. My other one, Why You Mad, is on hiatus currently, but we'll probably be back soon. And yeah, that's probably it. That's my little soapbox shop.
All right, everyone. Since this was a special ad-free episode, here's my spiel. You can find the Garret Schuelke podcast on all streaming platforms: Anchor, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbean. You name it, it's probably there. You can find Twitter at Schuelke Podcast. It's also on Facebook. Check out the page there. And yeah, that's all I have to advertise. Jake, again, thank you for being on, dude. This was awesome. I would love to have you on again sometime.
Yeah, man, it was great to be here. We'll certainly do it again. I love to talk, so just keep throwing questions at me. I'll go off all day.
All right, everyone, and thank you for listening. Here is the outro song, and we're done.
It's finished.
Yeah. Recording stopped.
Oh, boy.
Hey, wait a minute. You can't arrest a guy for just singing a song. For anti-Koopa songs, we can.